welcome back to another exciting episode of Lives, Thrives and Mental Health Dives. We are here today and joined by the lovely Serena. You may know her as Mortgages by Serena. She actually got me my mortgage, so we go, way back. And today, well, this is actually going to be a really, really crazy story / an eye-opener for lots of people out there, I'm sure, that are having fertility struggles, because it is kind of going to be a fertility-based episode, but we're just going to talk about whatever as well. So do you want to start off by telling us a little short version of your journey?
So, 38 now, had my twins in October last year, so I was still 37 and had been on the fertility journey myself since, I think, 2020, when I decided to come off Depot.
Right.
So the injection. Because nothing else really fit with me.
I didn't realise it stemmed that long.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And it was a conversation because my doctor rang me up to say, Serena, you're due to have it, but obviously we're in lockdown. What do you want to do next? And I was like, I want a baby.
Right.
And it was as simple as that. I'd had the same doctor for years, so it wasn't an uncomfortable conversation. I just said, I want a baby, so let's come off it.
And what had brought you to that? Did you just feel like you had that call of the void, I call it, where you've got like a pull, you just felt...
Absolutely. I've always wanted to be a mum, really maternal. All my friends had babies around me, always been like the person that would be interested in the babies rather than having the conversation and the wine. Yeah. Loved it, absolutely loved it. And I knew that one day I was going to be a mum. Yes. So getting to that age where I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. That horrible thing that everybody says, the clock was ticking.
I hate it. I'm experiencing feelings of this now. I mean, I'm 32 and I've never been in a rush. I mean, I'm a bit, as you've just described, my friends call me Nanny McDirk. The kids all love me. I'm very involved with my friends' children. Hasn't really just happened for me though, and that's fine. Yeah. But I know what you mean, as in like lots of people are like, oh, you're 32 now. Yeah. One of which being, sorry to expose her here, my mum. Yeah. And I never thought she would be, because she's quite a liberal queen. But
So when that came, just didn't go back on to any form of contraception, but ultimately was locked down in my own house. So I wasn't going to get pregnant that way either.
No, because you weren't doing what you've got to do to get pregnant.
No, it wasn't happening.
Yeah.
But I also started the conversation of, what do I do? And I said that. I said, so, and he knew I was single as well, to my doctor. So I said, well, but what do I do next? Yeah. And he said, let me come back to you. I'll talk.
Because this is the other thing, isn't it? We go through school, college, everything, and being young girls, and they absolutely drive home how not to get pregnant. Absolutely. But they never really educate about how to, if you wanted to.
This has been one of the biggest subjects that I've talked about recently. Like, you're told, don't get pregnant.
Yeah.
And don't do it. And we all joke about the mean girls, like, don't get pregnant or you'll die.
Yes.
Like, literally. But what happens if I do? Or if I actually might want to? There's no education after that.
See, me and my friends were having a joke about this recently, because we were like, at what age do you stop saying to people that go, I'm pregnant, like, oh, what are you going to do? And do you start being like, great!
That's amazing! I'm so happy for you. Yeah, it's a very taboo subject, talking about fertility, because there will be people possibly listening to this who have... Hello.
Sorry, Cookie can't be shut out because she does meow the door down, so she's just joining us. Hello, attention seeker.
Very cute. Though.
Go on.
Who, people sadly will have had miscarriages, who may go on to have miscarriages. I was fortunate that I hadn't fallen pregnant up to this point.
No.
However, I was on my own, and you can't get pregnant on your own, no matter how much you try.
Yeah.
So... the IUI journey was where I started. IUI is kind of the first port of call when it comes to fertility.
Yeah.
Most people will have heard of IVF. Yes. And some people will have heard of Ep3.
Yeah. So IUI, for people that are listening and don't know, is effectively artificially inseminating you. What my mum would call the turkey baster method.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where they put your legs up at your time of ovulation and they artificially...
inseminate.
They do.
Yes. Like a cow.
Yes. Similar. Yeah.
These are all and the thing is, you joke about it, but that would have been my journey. It really would have been my journey. And I spoke with various different people about, where do you get the sperm from? How do you sort of know about that person?
Where do you get the sperm from?
So in the UK, it's very, very regulated, and it means that you'll know a certain amount of information about the person colour of eyes, skin tone, level of education as well, which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah, because I thought, well, I don't necessarily want a rocket scientist, but I also
you don't want a sausage.
Yeah, I also don't want someone maybe that's, you know, in Strangeways or something.
Yeah.
Rocking that lifestyle. So, it, you know, there is a level of information that you will find out about them. The baby can find out when they're 18.
And is there any, like, I guess, like, backstreet people that would just, like...
Oh, my God. There is a Netflix documentary that I watched about a guy from, where was he? Holland, I think it was.
Sorry, I think I've seen it, where he's got, like, 100 children. Now the problem is that they may be breeding with one another.
There's
because
thousands.
He's had so many. And there's like a thing, isn't there? I forget the name of it, but you are naturally, if you've never been brought up with said siblings, a natural attraction because you see a piece of yourself in them.
Yeah.
So they're meeting up, they're falling in love, and then finding out that they're brother and sister later on.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of fucked up.
Yeah. And then he's then almost like created like a farm of these people that have also been going out. So if you
want
are
to avoid
thinking about
that.
it, be legit is what I would say. Yes, it's cheaper, obviously, if you know, try alternative methods.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah.
So I went down the route of having my different tests, which we will discuss and we'll put it in the show notes, I think, because it's really important that people know exactly what tests they need to say they need.
Yeah.
Don't be saying, I am thinking about having a baby, because if you do that, they won't take you seriously. If you are doing this, you need to tell them, I need to know my levels because I am going to start this journey.
That's really interesting, isn't it? That like you have to use that kind of like direct language, because we as British people, I think, go about things in a polite manner, don't we? Oh, I'm thinking about it. Would be nice, you know?
Yeah.
And it's interesting that that's actually a point of advice that you give, that you have to be like, no, I'm having one. How are you going to help me get there type
absolutely.
thing?
And the first time I didn't, the language I used was tiptoeing about it, like politely asking. And they came back and they were like, oh, it's not something we can do. Now, having your AMH levels read is expensive. And that's why they don't want to. It costs back in 2020 about £750 per test.
Right.
Our testing unit is in Scotland, so it gets sent off somewhere as well. So it's, you know, it's going to cost them money. They're not going to want to do it. So you have to be empowered to say, I need my AMH levels so I know how fertile I am.
And then you can have it done on the NHS.
Absolutely.
Oh,
you can. Yeah. There will be certain criteria. If you've already had children, perhaps you might not be entitled to things like that. But if you are embarking on it as someone who hasn't had children before and wants to have children, then you're absolutely entitled to it.
Yeah.
Again, it's postcodal for a lot of things as well when it goes further on from that. But
which is frustrating that we're kind of discovering, just because Ella and I have started doing a bit of research into it. We're not doing anything just yet. But like, obviously for same-sex couples, apparently there is a golden rumour going around that in some postcodes you can have IVF, etc. done on the NHS, but they don't ever, of course, reveal.
You can find that information out.
How?
I will help you. I'll help
guys,
you.
stay tuned.
So we're very close to a postcode. That means if we had friends and we were near to living with them, then
that could be a reality.
Yeah,
amazing.
Which is it's eye opening, and there's things to do with like BMI, all sorts of different things.
Yeah,
I would be treated as if I was a same sex couple,
right?
So I'd have to go through the 6 funded rounds of IVF.
Yeah.
Which, as a person on your own, like, it's even harder again because there isn't a second income.
Yes.
So I'm treated as if I'm a couple in a same-sex relationship, but with less income. So it was absolutely eye-opening. It took 2 years.
It's pitted against you almost, which is frustrating, because you think, and I'm not saying this in like a really horrible derogatory way, there's people out there that are not fit to have children that are having them willy-nilly, and then there's people like yourself that's got a business and you're a lovely citizen and you are getting pushed like back against these things. It's crazy.
It is really sad. It was a really eye-opening journey as I went through it, and I documented it quite a lot on my social media because I'm an open book. And I think, do you know what? If I help one other person get to that journey successfully, then that's what I've done it for, you know. Because fortunately for me, I was going to start the journey I was saying to you earlier on. I was going to start the journey in April 24 after having finally got all my research done and knowing that I was going to have to pay for it.
Yeah.
And I fell pregnant in the February the 29th. So I didn't propose on the 29th. Told him he was going to be a daddy on the 29th.
My God, so this is the amazing fairy tale ending that Serena then had. So after trying to get pregnant by herself, she was a single girl. She just thought she hadn't met the right person. She's now met the one, the man of her dreams, her Prince Charming, her baby daddy, and fell pregnant, and now they have twin babies together.
We do, yeah.
And what you said something to me before, which I absolutely loved. Do you want to repeat? You said the reason that your journey was so hard.
Yeah, I genuinely believe this. I believe in the universe. I'm very, very much in tune with that. And I think that the reason that the IUI journey was so difficult for me was because it wasn't meant for me.
Yeah, but the knowledge and things that you gained along the way, well, they're invaluable to other people, but even like maybe showing that side to the willingness, and that was maybe you manifesting it all.
Totally.
It all happening.
Yeah.
So now you're a twin mum.
I am.
How are we doing with that? Is it one of those things that you think I've wished for this, and they're both crying, and then you're like, I asked for this. Oh my God.
I have to remind myself to be calm.
Yeah.
And say, but I've always wanted this.
Yeah.
I've always wanted this. So whether they be crying now or what have you, there are absolutely magical moments as well where, and they're like, I didn't realise this before. When I've seen my friends' babies and handed them back, it's lovely, it's cute. They might do a little bit of a cry, but you give them back and that's it. You move on with your day.
Yeah.
Now I notice that they'll cry like incessantly, like the world's just about to end. And then they'll smile at me and I'm like, oh my God, this is a little bit like, I feel like you've got some serious issues going on there. But it's also so sweet as well.
And rewarding and gorgeous.
Because I know that they're smiling at me because they know I'm their mummy.
Yeah.
And that's what I always dreamed of.
And what was being pregnant with two babies like?
Horrendous.
Yeah.
I don't know any different.
I was just about to say, so you've never had a pregnancy and then all of a sudden you've grown two.
Yeah, two at once.
I actually saw a TikTok the other day about twin mums, and it was like, at one point, my body had 3 heads, 3 hearts.
Yeah.
You know, like
6 arms.
Yeah.
6 legs. Yeah, it's wild when I think about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the pregnancy was hyperemesis hell, which there is no likeness to pregnancy, like morning sickness as it's coined.
Yeah.
It's not in the morning. It is whenever it wants. And it was really hard going, trying at the beginning as well to keep it quiet.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to jinx yourself. And
do you know what though? This is something that I actually, especially as I go through life and get a bit older and have had friends that have sadly lost children and lost pregnancies, I should say. That sounds a bit more like they've lost children further along. And I actually rebuke the idea of not telling people till 12 weeks now, because I think if you are trying to get pregnant and you're telling people that you're getting pregnant and then you get to 9 weeks and you lose it, you are allowed to be sad about that, and you're allowed to tell people
totally
that you were.
Totally.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I
think it's this old wives thing, isn't it, of almost like, no, mustn't say a word till 12 weeks. Well, listen, if I'm vomiting into a bucket and I've tried for this baby, I'll be telling the world.
Oh, absolutely. And
I
I 100% agree with that. I told lots of my friends, lots of my family. I was trying to keep it quiet to my mum.
Right.
I wasn't going to tell her till Mother's Day. And then she started having this like really emotional talk with me. And I was like, I'm pregnant.
Oh, God.
It's like, oh my God, I'm trying to keep this like a lovely surprise for you and you've just gone and ruined it.
Oh, no.
But no, I totally agree with that. I think it's so important as well that you feel like you can grieve as well.
Yeah.
And also grieve the previous you, because I was not myself during pregnancy at all. From feeling so unwell all the time, from having 5 trips to hospital over the first few weekends of being pregnant because I had bleeding. And I didn't know what was going on.
You're living on like a wire, aren't you? Yeah. For like, especially like you said, if you are like maybe in your later 30s and you've not experienced it before, everything's terrifying, I imagine.
Yeah. And more terrifying when you're older because you know the risks. I think if I'd have been 21 and carefree, I'd have been like, it is what it is. Like, you know.
I've got plenty more time for it to all come around. Yeah.
Exactly.
And how have you now found the transition back into the old you? I know it will never be the same, but like you run a business, you do, like, how has that translated back, or is it still a process?
It's still a process, I would say. Absolutely a process. So I took 2 weeks off fully.
Is that it?
Yeah. And I did my first kit day when the boys were still on NICU. So that was really hard, really hard. Trying to be present, trying to keep things going. It was spinning plates on acid. It was something I
think also though, it's like, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because I know for me, my job is part of my sanity. It makes me eye roll myself into the next room sometimes, but it keeps you ticking over. And especially like with you who works for yourself and works from home, I bet that's something for you that kind of keeps you going.
Yeah.
But then also, you know what I mean? It's a fine line,
the complexities
isn't it?
of it as well. So people come to me as a mortgage broker because it's a complex process.
Yeah.
And totally agree. It's kept me going. It's given me a distraction as well when I've had serious worries about the boys and their health and things. But at the same time, I've just thought, when a client, for example, has not been happy with the result, which is completely out of my hands ultimately. If a lender says no, they can just say no because they don't want to. And it's as simple as that sometimes. And I'm sat there thinking, this isn't the end of the world. However, my world could end.
Yes.
Like, and there's that almost a totally different way of thinking.
Yeah.
Which I'd never felt before.
But then this ties into completely where I've wanted to go with this series about like girl power type thing. Because this is something, and I'm not saying this is like any hatred to men, this is something only a woman experiences.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of my friends, as much as they have amazing baby daddies and partners, the woman ends up being the primary caregiver. You've given birth to them. They know your smell. They want you, etc. and so forth. And then you're trying to regain normality. You're trying to have a career. You're trying to do whatever it is that you were doing. And a man, I just don't think has that same pull that a woman has.
Yeah.
And I hate to admit to stuff like that where I'm like, it isn't an even split sometimes. But in this instance, I don't think it is.
No. And I'm the breadwinner, so I've had to go back to work.
Yeah.
We've done shared paternity, so my partner is off at the moment with the boys, which is lovely.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would recommend if anybody can do that, do it because they have such a strong bond with him.
Yeah.
It's so lovely.
That's
like
nice.
In the morning, they're smiling at him. And I know friends or other people who've not had that experience. So I would really encourage it if it's possible. I know it's not for everybody.
I was just about to say, as a same-sex couple that are women, that'll be actually great because I imagine we both get that. But I wonder what happens if you're a same-sex couple of men. I've never actually thought about that. I wonder
there's a really good Instagram account. I think it's called Shift Dad or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And they are petitioning for better rights for men and things.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
But a lot of it's always about employed people.
Yes.
There is this massive disconnect between self-employed and employed.
Yeah.
And what we get. That's why I was back after 2 weeks, because I had to do keeping in touch days in order to be able to keep my business afloat.
Yes.
To be able to come back in January full time.
See, my mum has even said to me, so my mum accidentally fell pregnant with me. Well, I say accidentally. They were trying, but my mum had been told that she was going to have a really hard time getting pregnant. So they got pregnant sooner than she thought.
Yeah.
And she hadn't worked at the company that she was working at the time very long. So she had to go back to work after 6 weeks. And I think all the way through my life, when she would kind of tell me tidbits about this, I'd be like, la, 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 whatever. And then now I've seen what a 6-week-old baby looks like. I can't believe that my mum went back to full-time work at 6.
But not only the baby, her.
Oh, yeah.
Her recovery, her journey back to being able to, if she'd had a C-section, for example, she would still be laid up potentially.
Yeah.
It's wild that that's even possible.
And it's crazy, I think, that sometimes because it is like a woman's duty to breed and, spread the babies around the world, it's not maybe viewed in the same way as like major surgery or like a major thing to your body, is it?
Mine was... Well,
Did you have a C-section?
Yeah. Oh. There was no way I was doing that naturally. Like, not with 2, not a chance.
The Finch twins' mum did natural.
Well,
natural.
I've spoken to Rachel about the journey, Because actually, I told Rachel without telling her. Yeah. Because I was asking her questions about twins when I knew. And she was like, I don't really know what type of twin I was at this. And then later on when I told her, she's like, oh my God, now I know why you're asking so many questions.
Are your sons identical?
Yeah.
So they were one egg split, which I don't know if people know. I only know this because I have friends that are twins. The identical twins, when an egg splits, that's nothing to do with genetics. That is literally just a chance happening.
Yeah.
And the twins that are passed down genetically are fraternal twins where a woman releases 2 eggs.
Yeah.
And
And that tends to run in families. 30% of those twins can be still identical. You can have a blood test to check.
Yeah.
But it's not as common.
Yeah.
And there's all sorts of different types of twins. And ours were 1 placenta, 2 sacs. And you can also get where it's 1 placenta, 1 sac. And that's really, really risky because you've got the risk.
Is that where you can get conjoined twins?
Yeah, but you can also get where the cord can obviously strangle, things like that. So
I bet you could not believe it. You'd spent all that time and then did you literally find out at the first scan? They were like, there's 2 in there.
Well, yeah. So I found out I was pregnant on the 29th of February.
Yeah.
So most women propose on the 29th of February. I told him he was going to be a dad.
Can I ask a bit of a personal question? If he, the baby daddy, had been like, really sorry, I'm not for me, would you have been like, that's fine, I'm going to pursue it anyway? Because of where you were.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
I would.
But when I met him, we met online, and my profile said, like, I want to get married, I want to have babies.
Oh.
If you are not up for this, swipe past. Do
Fair
not
fucks.
go on a date with me. Do not message me.
Yeah.
Do not waste my time. Like, I was in my 30s, my
That's
late
fair
30s.
enough,
Like,
though.
I don't want
I respect
to.
that.
And he said that.
Oh.
He said he saw that and he was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Just actually being honest, because weirdly enough, I never thought about this, but like women also do tell men they want babies.
Yeah.
And they don't.
Yeah.
And I was really shocked by that. And he was like, no, I've been on a few dates where they've given me the impression that they do to begin with.
And then they don't.
And then they don't. And I actually do want to be a dad.
It is a deal breaker though, like
Yeah,
for some
it was
people.
for
And
me.
I do know that some people genuinely don't have the desire, and that's
Yeah.
fine. But it's just not a match then, is
Yeah,
it?
exactly. And I think, yeah, for me, I was just like, it was my last chance saloon. I was like, I'm going to go on one more time, and then that's it.
That's it.
I
done.
will just
And it was
happily
that
be on
time.
my own. And it happened.
I love that.
Yeah.
So sorry, tell me about the finding out.
Yeah, so
You
we found
knew
out
you
on
were
the
pregnant.
29th.
Yeah.
I actually only tested because I thought it was perimenopausal.
Right.
So I didn't expect it to actually be pregnant.
Right.
So that came as a huge shock. We'd just found out my dog had cancer the day before. So I was like, come in here, come and look. And he was like, oh God, what now?
Yeah.
And he was like, there's too many lines I don't understand. It was 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
But I will always pull his leg about that one. And he was, we were gobsmacked. And as the day went on, and I was like, I'm just going to test again. 3 more tests. I was like, they're pretty strong lines.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm pretty sure that's happening. So we booked in for a private scan.
And how many weeks would this have been at?
Well, eventually we did do a clear blue, and it said about 5 weeks.
Right, okay.
So, because I also didn't realise that whatever it says, you're not that, you're 2 weeks plus that.
Oh.
How unclear, why not just
I
tell
don't
me?
understand the system anyway, because it's always from like the first day of your last period, because they count it as a cycle, don't they?
Yeah.
So effectively, before you've even had sex or conceived, you would technically already be 2 weeks pregnant.
Yeah, it's weird,
It's
isn't it?
random. Yeah.
But
yeah.
because of the IUI journey, I tracked religiously, so I knew exactly when, and it was because I was at day 31 and I was a day 29 girl. I was like, this is weird.
This is strange.
But I have been quite stressed. There's a lot going on. Maybe
Yeah.
it's that. And then, when I found out I was pregnant, I was like, let's book a scan.
Yeah.
And we also wanted to find out the sex. So we had the early blood test as well. Because not a lot of people know about that. They think you have to wait till 20 weeks.
Yeah.
But I had the blood test at 7 weeks and found out at 8 weeks that it was boys. So
But when did they tell you it was twins?
at the 7-week scan, they were scanning away, and she'd pre-warned me. She was like, don't panic, I might be quite quiet, I'm concentrating, it's very early, so I might even have to do an internal scan.
Of course, people I imagine are like, how is it?
Yeah,
You know,
what's going on?
yes, yeah.
But no, and I'd been pre-warned about a possible internal scan, so I was ready for that. And she's scanning away, and we're looking at this big screen, and I was like, a bit oblivious to what was going on.
I feel like this is a film.
Like, honestly, if I look back at it now, it's wild. And my partner said he saw 2 heartbeats, and she, after a little while, went, "Well, it looks like twins." And I burst into tears of happiness.
Oh,
obviously.
tears of joy.
But I was just like, oh my God. I was like, and I turned to him, and because in the waiting room, I'd said to him, well, what's the worst that could happen? And he literally
no wonder
said,
you were sick.
Twins.
Yeah.
So
2.
it's a shock, to say the least.
God.
Yeah.
But just going back to what you just said about you weren't sure if it was because you were perimenopausal. If that had have been the case. Would you have ever gone down like an adoptive route or something?
Yeah.
Were you that set on being a mum?
Absolutely. So the reason I tested was because I thought that, and so I thought, well, we'll get our skates on. That's the next conversation. Let's actively start trying.
Yeah.
And my mum's adopted, so I am.
My dad's adopted.
Yeah, completely open to it.
Yeah.
I never wouldn't have not done it, if you will, or looked at the IVF journey as well with him. So it came as a huge shock.
I'm so glad this happened, because you meant to be a mum. I feel like you had that much love and desire and kind of like graft towards the situation.
Yeah.
It's great that it came off the way that it
does. I know that you believe in it as well, but the universe definitely knew what was right for me, knew that was not my journey, but hopefully I've helped people along the way as well.
And something I've been messaged about this week, which I did want to ask you while you were here, was I've had a couple of responses to Insta stories asking how you navigated being a 30-something woman and being asked, when you're going to be doing this, and if that made you feel some kind of way, if it hurt your feelings.
I think because I'd always been so open about wanting to be a mum.
Yeah.
It was probably asked more so.
Right.
But being single as well, I think it was also not even thought about that it was an option. So when I started talking about IUI, people were like, I don't understand this. And that's why I was like, do you know what? Not enough people understand this. I need to
And I
help.
think that's a massive thing, is that not a lot of people fully understand the options that are out there. I mean, I have a bit of a different one where I'm in my 30s, childless, but mine's not so much because of being single, even though I have had stints in my life where I have been single, but the pressure wasn't on as much because I was like in my 20s. But mine's now from like a same-sex perspective. Like people are like, oh yeah, so have you just accepted you're not going to have a child? And I'm like, what are you talking about? We're so excited to be mums, just not this moment. You know what I mean? And I think that it is that lack of education. Even, again, I am throwing her under the bus here, my own mum. So my mum's very like bra-burning, vegan, liberal queen. She is so forward-thinking in many ways, and she's an absolute gay ally. I think until it knocked on her own door. Yeah. And then I don't think she ever had a problem with like the gay thing. Yeah. But I think she was like, no grandchildren for me. Yeah. And I was like, that's not the case, and that's not the reality. Yeah. But it took her a while to get herself to come around to that thought. Yeah.
And I think because it seems so maybe unusual in the process.
It's just not the status quo, is it? Where I can't accidentally fall pregnant. We have to plan and be on an actual trajectory where we're both wanting it, we've both planned it, we're paying for it, perhaps, unless I move to the secret postcode. And I think that's a bit different as well, because many of my friends fell pregnant and it's ended up being the best thing that ever happened to them. But that's not always the reality if you're single or in a situation like mine. I say situation like it's like the old ball and chain. That's situation in there. But but it's just amazing that how like things all just work out, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And now, is there anything you'd change?
If I could not have hyperemesis.
If you could not have that,
but do you know what? Again, I've educated myself on that, because ultimately, if I was to have more children in the future, I would have hyperemesis again. Yeah. I don't want any more children, so I'm
Well, I know you've got two in one, so I suppose.
2 in 1, literally.
And have you had people reach out to you that have said that you've really helped them or have started their journey?
There's been quite a few people who...
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah, who have been grateful for the highlights that I've put on, because I've put them there so that they will stay there. Yeah. Obviously, things might change, legislation could change, but ultimately, what you need is your AMH levels, and there's other tests as well that you need to have done. Yeah. And without those, you'll never be able to get any further on with it. Yeah. We're quite lucky in the north that we have exposure to London quite quickly, so we do have good links to fertility, etc. Yeah, and it's good that is available to us, but it's finding it out, it's being educated, and that's why I felt the need to share.
I think also with IUI, just based on my own research, etc., like it sounds like the cheaper option compared to IVF, because IVF's such a big sum in one. Yeah. But your chances are less. Yeah. And I actually follow a same-sex couple on Instagram, and they actually have had a baby through IUI, but I think they were successful on their 5th attempt.
Yeah.
And all the expensive blood tests that Serena's talking about, they expire after 3 months. So every 3 months they were having to pay for more. So that in itself was £1,500 to keep their tests up to date. Then it's between £1,500 and £3,000 per time that they inseminate you.
Yeah.
And I think they were basically saying if we had our time again, we would go straight to IVF from the start because it's more of a, not guarantee, nothing's a guarantee, but it's like a much higher chance.
Yeah.
Because in the end, I think they said that they spent 15 grand.
Yeah.
They got the desired outcome, and that's amazing. But I don't think
15 grand could wipe someone out before they've even become a parent.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you've got the expenses. Like, just, like maternity bras for you and clothes for the kids, and there's a lot more that goes into it than I ever thought about. You know, like just even being able to express and give them my milk. People think that it's cheaper than formula, but I've spent a lot of money on being able to do that for the boys successfully.
Well, also, it's like, it's whether it fits your lifestyle. Yeah. So Liv, my best friend that's been on this podcast a few times, she chose to exclusively breastfeed. And I remember her ringing me one day and she went, I finally understand the saying, don't cry over spilled milk. And she went, because I can only express a certain amount a day.
Yeah.
And she was like, and it's like precious to me.
Yeah.
And she went, and if I spilled that milk, she went, I would cry because it hurts. It's a lot of work and etc. And I was like, oh yeah, but she was like tied to the house for the first 6 months. She was like a milking cow because she chose to solely breastfeed. Now I don't think she regrets it and she loved the journey, but like it's that as well.
Yeah. And it's not possible for everybody, and there's so much pressure on people that breast is best. And I have been very, very fortunate. I've had a massive supply. Niku, I've never seen anybody leave with as much milk as I had.
You are a milking cow.
Literally. When I was back in hospital, because we've had not the best start to our journey as parents with the boys. And on one of the trips, like we kept going back to the same place in Blackburn, and they were like, it's Daisy the cow, because you have to go take your milk for them to put it into the fridge.
Yeah.
So it's been an experience. But when people say it's cheaper, don't feel the pressure to do it because it's cheaper, because I wouldn't necessarily say it's much cheaper.
No. And it's so right what you've just said, is in like that money's before you've even got a child to support. Yeah. The system's so fucked, really, isn't it? When you think about it.
Absolutely. And that was my experience of it. I went, I think it was the February before we locked down in the March, not knowing that this was coming at all, obviously. No. And I'd gone to Manchester to one of the fertility clinics to see a consultant, to have a scan, to check that everything was okay, and sat down, and the numbers, it was literally like these numbers coming at me, and I was like, so you're saying it could cost me 15 grand to maybe not be pregnant? Yeah. Like, and they sell it in packages and stuff, don't they? And I'm like, wow.
Going back to kind of what you touched on before about being a single person going through it, it's also being a single person going through the mental side of it that isn't factored in. And I bet there's no support in place for that. Like, I bet
you have to have counselling.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, you have to ensure that you are ready for what you're about to embark on.
Yeah.
And
because it's heavy duty.
Yeah,
it is. It's also being told things about yourself that you may have never known. Like you said, you'd never fallen pregnant by accident. Yeah. They could have come back and gone, actually, Serena, you're infertile. It's probably not going to happen, etc. And then you're just like driving home, listening to Adele and crying your eyes out, aren't you? Yeah. And it's a heavy process.
It is. It really is. And I think if it's something that you wanting to embark on, speak to someone that's got experience in it, not just a fertility clinic, because something I never thought about until someone told me was that these companies are businesses.
Yeah.
They are wanting to sell you something. So a lady I know who at the time she got a 6-week-old, told me, like, me and my husband, we went for all these different clinics. They all told us it would take years. It wasn't going to happen. Yeah. And actually it was the only thing that was keeping them together, trying for this baby.
Yeah.
So they decided to go the separate ways. She met up with an old school friend who she'd always had a bit of a flame for.
All right.
And not thinking that she was ever going to get pregnant, there's
a theme here.
Hopped off to Ibiza for a weekend, and by the end of the weekend she was like, do I actually feel a little bit more rough than I normally would do?
Yeah.
And she'd fallen pregnant. after years, 12 years of marriage, unsuccessfully not getting pregnant.
That wasn't her journey, that's why.
That wasn't her journey
but
either.
You hear stories about this as well, of people that can't get pregnant, they adopt, and then they're able to have a...
Yeah, and then they fall pregnant naturally. Yeah.
And it's just crazy. But thank you so much for coming on and educating us all about this.
Absolutely.
And I will just say, I've not got Serena's permission for this, but if people want to message you about this, you'd
I'd
love to talk more about
Yeah.
it. Serena has like really informed me, because I've actually been one of the people that's messaged you before, haven't I? Just to kind of
I bombarded you
just to
with it
dip my
all.
toe, if nothing else. So yeah, and also if you want help with your mortgage, Serena's your woman there as well. And don't worry if you've got £1,500 credit card debt, because I was shitting myself that I couldn't get a mortgage because of that. Do you remember when I messaged you that? I was like, Serena, I've got debt. And you were like,
God.
how much is it? You probably thinking 10 grand. And I was like, 1,500 quid. And you were like, Tessa, that's fine. And I was like, okay.
Pretty normal. Pretty normal.
I was like, okay, that's fine. Just had to get that off my chest. But yeah, so if you wanted any more advice on that, message the lovely Serena. And thank you so much for coming on, Serena. Thanks. See you next time.